Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, find a way to win, find a way to lose. Please subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. Keeps me motivated, and it makes sure that you get some good content. Now let's talk about Errol Spence. Boom. Hey man, why are so many fighters going on record and saying that Errol Spence will be better at 154 pounds? What is the story? Now, I'm going to sit here and tell you, man, I'm not a professional boxer. I never fought professionally. I, like many of you, have been in gyms. I, like many of you, have cut weight for fights before. I, like many of you, have cut weight and trained, not for fights, just to get in shape. But the thing is, to see a fighter bubble up in weight and to think that all of a sudden they are now going to be more dominant at that higher weight than they were at the lower weight classes, yeah, I'm not sure I buy into that. Because the first thing that we need to understand, skills pay the bills. Now, I do think there's always the argument about what's more important. Speed kills, or does power kill, or do both kill? Or which one quality would you like to have if you only were allowed to have one? Would it be power or speed? 9 times out of 10, people would say speed. Okay? Because speed kills. It does. And having that speed can help you to be strong defensively, and we already know what it does for you offensively. And it can save you in fights. But when a fighter normally goes up in weight, well, I'll put it to you this way. When a fighter is able to kill themselves to get down to a certain weight division, they do that because they're more effective at that weight. That's why they have the term that's been coined called weight bullies. You've seen it in boxing. Huge guys, man, melt themselves down, get to a weight division they're not supposed to be at, and they do some damage. But at a certain point in time, it catches up to them. Now, since we're in 2023, let's just talk about 2 guys, for example, like Devin Haney. Some struggles there, up at 140. Errol Spence, some struggles there, wants to get up to 154. But let me tell y'all something. Just because Errol Spence wants to fight at 154, and these people thinking he'll be better, I'm not sure I'm sold on that, because it goes back to what I said in the beginning of this video. Skills pay the bills. If you're a guy who's a well-rounded fighter with speed, with some pop, and has extremely sound fundamental skills, yeah, you can move up and down those weight divisions because those skills can get you out of trouble. But Errol Spence hasn't shown me that he has super sound fundamentals. Now, we saw him box, and he did good. You remember, he's an Olympian. The guy had a great amateur career. And the one time he showed us that he was a good boxer, which I'm not even sure I was so impressed by that performance, when he fought Mikey Garcia. And then when we put things in perspective, stars just lined up on that night for Errol Spence because Mikey Garcia was sick going into that fight. I still think Errol Spence would have beat him, but Errol Spence couldn't even stop a sick Mikey Garcia. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Errol Spence, because Mikey Garcia is the real deal. That dude is a true champion. He's a fighter. But what I'm getting at is Errol Spence skills. What is Errol Spence taking to 154 that tells you all, and that tells these pro fighters, that Errol Spence is going to be super effective at 154? That's my question. Because at 147, what really helped Errol Spence at 147 is just that work rate, and that his endless stamina, and just coming behind the jab and being able to just basically outwork his opponents, and that constant pressure. Pressure bust pipes. You've seen it. Matter of fact, this weekend, you saw with that guy Orozco when he fought Conor Ben. You saw that pressure Orozco was putting on him, but he just didn't have the pop that Errol Spence had. but he's strong. And Conor Ben was able to survive. But let me tell you, that was a fight. And Errol Spence is very similar style when it comes to when he gets in the ring. He's not really looking to float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and coochie coo an opponent. Errol Spence is coming in to put that pressure on you, work behind that jab, and break you down, head, body. He'll hit you anywhere. And it just gets to a point to where fighters can't get their breath. They can't catch the wind because Errol Spence stays on them. It stays on them. But outside of that, seeing now that against a fighter who can box, who can get in between those shots that Errol Spence is throwing, when Errol Spence bubbles up to 154, especially if he's going to be rematching Crawford, if that fight happens at 154, I don't see it being any different. I just don't. What's going to save Errol Spence when the real deal starts? So let's say, okay, let's forget about Crawford. Okay, at 154. Okay, just imagine, all right? Let's say Errol Spence goes to 154 and he happens to get Tim Tszyu. Okay? Let's just say that happens, right? I'm not telling you that's in the works. I'm just saying, let's say that happens. Right now, Tim Tszyu against Errol Spence. Who do you think wins that fight? Okay, let's be real now. I want to say Errol Spence, but I'm going to be honest with you. There's something special about the Australian. I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't think anything about Tim Tszyu. I didn't. Until I saw him fight Tony Harrison, I was like, okay, Harrison looked like he just basically took the money, said, okay, yeah, I'll make sure you win the fight. Just give me the $3 million, I can retire. Then he came and fought the Mexican fighter, and I thought that guy was going to give him the business. And those shots he was hitting him with, I was like, okay, well, I'm convinced now. I remember when Tim Tszyu came to the States. He had his first fight, got knocked out in the first round, came back, knocked that guy out. And I noticed that, but it didn't get my attention. But now Tim Tszyu has my attention. And the thing about Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence, they're not going to be in there boxing and coochie-cooing and jabbing and slipping and pull counters. They're not doing that. It's going to be a mash-up, crash-up. And I just have a feeling with Errol Spence not really being able to be like Miguel Cotto, who can go from banging and slugging and mash up, crash up in a fighter, to getting on his toes and boxing. Errol Spence, I haven't seen him do that. I would like to think he can do that, but I haven't seen him do that. And at 154, I just think Errol Spence is a big name at 154, and he's food for a lot of these fighters. That's just how I see it, man. And I don't wish bad on Errol Spence, but I just got to give you my opinion. I don't understand why everybody's saying he's going to be, better at 154 and he's going to, possibly beat Terrence Crawford at 154. I don't think so. If Errol Spence putting on another 7 pounds for the fight helps him with not being weight drained, with his punch resistance, with his stamina, being able to focus and everything, well, then it helps Terrence Crawford too. All right? For Errol Spence to go to 154, to me, to be effective and get a big win, he got to get somebody who's killing themselves to come down to 154 from a higher weight class where they should be at, and for Spence to have an advantage. This Errol Spence, we just have to see how he looks, man. But even Danny Garcia floating around at 154, that could be a tough fight for Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? We just don't know what's going to happen. Now, this is something else we got to understand, man. When these fighters get in these hard fights, sometimes they never recover. Sometimes they're never the same, man. All right? And Errol Spence already had a lot of baggage, been carrying a lot of baggage around with him for the last few years. You know what I'm talking about. And the fight with Terrence Crawford just did not help his situation. So that being said, man, we just gotta see how effective Errol Spence can be at 154. Because most fighters, when they go up in weight, it's because they've lost their effectiveness at the weight they were fighting at. But did Errol Spence have all the effectiveness beaten out of him by Terrence Crawford to where it doesn't matter what weight class he goes up to? He's just not going to be able to have the success he had at 147 because he was basically weight bullying guys. And guys just didn't have enough to put up the challenge because Errol Spence was coming in the ring, damn near 180, 90 pounds. It's crazy. But I don't know. We'll see. There are a lot of people out here who make comments who aren't boxers, but they have an opinion. And they talk about where some people, depending on the point in time in your life, are comfortable at certain weights. But as you get older, things change. And that's something that we got to take into consideration too. Errol Spence and these guys in their 20s, it's one thing to get down to 147. When you start getting in your 30s, Earl's in his 30s now, man. He ain't no spring chicken. Anybody out here who's over 30 years old knows, unless you just have a super high metabolism, it's not easy to maintain the weight that you were comfortable at in your 20s and your 30s. Your body just changes. Your vision starts to go. You know what I'm saying? Even with your teeth. You know what I mean? You can start, like me, I got a little bit of root exposure and stuff. I've never had a cavity. I've never had any issues with my mouth, but just over time, you know what I mean? There's just things that just start to become a bit of an issue. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, especially when I started to develop blurred vision in my eyes. All of a sudden, I never needed glasses my whole life. Now I need glasses. You got to be kidding me. So what I'm saying is, those things started showing up for me in my 30s. And for Errol Spence, he's in his 30s, and the things that he's struggling with right now, he'd be struggling with outside of boxing because it's just part of life. But he just so happens to be in a ferocious sport where he's putting himself through hell, even when he's outside of the boxing match, through sparring, through grueling training sessions, getting up early. You know what I'm saying? It's rough on the body. But that being said, man, I don't know. I think Errol Spence may be running out of opponents, man. I really do. I think opponents where he can actually get in there and get some good wins to get back to the top of any weight division. Because the guys that got at 154, I don't think Errol Spence would get up there and dominate those elite guys at 154. I think Errol Spence would struggle. And we just got to wait and see how he looks in his return. But I just think once people realize that they can get to you, you can be hurt, and there's a blueprint on how to beat you, that could become problematic for you. But at the end of the day, you don't know. Maybe Errol Spence could be like a Holyfield and bubble up in weight and do very well at a heavier weight class. Maybe that's what Errol Spence really needs. I don't know. But I tell you what, we had never seen Evander Holyfield get beat down at cruiserweight. We never seen that happen before he bubbled up to heavyweight. So he had some tough fights, don't get me wrong. But man was undisputed at cruiserweight, bubbled up to heavyweight, and made some noise. So maybe that's what Errol Spence needs. But I'm going to be honest with you. When these fighters are saying they think Errol Spence will be better at 154, I'm just not seeing it. But at the end of the day, I don't think I have the trained eye like they do. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe they've sparred with him when he was at 154, 160. Maybe Ugis knows firsthand from maybe sparring with Errol Spence when Errol Spence kept killing himself to get to 147. Maybe he knows, hey, he's a different person. I fought him at 147. He was great, but the power is different. His resistance is different at 154. Maybe, I don't know. But we'll find out whenever Errol Spence gets back in the ring if fighters were correct when they said Errol Spence will be better at 154. In my opinion, the verdict's still out. That being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans all 7 continents. I'm in the breeze.